as is clear from this slide, the 20th century was a time of an absolute explosion of standards. There is a standard now for just about everything, from electrical plugs to saving the forests. We need new ideas for the 21st century. And please, may they not all evolve into standards. And I'm saying this not just because there are too many or we have quite a few already, thank you, but because maybe something a little more profound than that. And I will say actually something more profound than, say, harmonizing can achieve. Because a lot of people say, well, the problem is you just got to harmonize. I think there's something else going on here. And I'm going to give the example of forests and wood products. But a lot of what I have to say, I think, has relevance beyond this. Okay, why? Well, first of all, we all have heard something about tropical deforestation, that we've got problems here, that somewhere in the world, forests are disappearing at the rate of X number of football fields per minute, or for those of us who don't really do football very well, 13 million hectares per year. And this is a problem for a number of reasons, which some of you may know. For example, global warming. We're thinking that something like 12 to 20% of greenhouse gas emissions that humans have caused come from forest loss. It's driven extinction of thousands of plant and animal species. It's displaced indigenous people. It's led to loss of livelihood for a lot of the world's poorest people. But it's also created new economic opportunities, for the palm and soy and beef, et cetera, that have been created. Instead, it's important to remember this. Now, I want to talk first about a new idea that emerged in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And this is forest certification. And the idea here is, how can we encourage people to do better management of their forests and also have local people get some benefit from it? Okay, so I don't know how many of you have heard of forest certification, but maybe you might have recognized some of these labels. For example, fair trade. How many of you know fair trade or seen a fair trade label? Okay, wow, a lot. Okay, well, so you might have some idea how that works. You often see it, say, on coffee or other products that you find in the supermarket. And what it basically signifies is that the farmer that produced that coffee got a decent price. They got a fair price for the coffee. So when you buy a fair trade label, it means that the farmer gets some benefit from it. All your money isn't just going to the brand name, whatever it is, but it's actually going to the farmer too. Well, the idea of forest certification is very similar. So I put up one example, there's more than one, of a forest certification scheme, the Forest Stewardship Council with the tree and check mark. You might have seen this label too. It's on, let's say, toilet paper, it's on printing products, it's on garden benches. And what that signifies is that if you buy that product, this didn't lead to deforestation. And it didn't lead to degradation either. And the workers were treated right, and the community around the forest wasn't harmed by it. Now, this was actually revolutionary, because until that point, if you care about these things and you go into the store and you say, I don't want to buy a wood product that's destroying the forest, you're lost, because there's nothing you can do about it. You can't tell one product from another, unless maybe you buy it from the farmer down the road, but other than that, you just don't know. So this was revolutionary, and I thought it was pretty exciting. I got involved early on. I was working in California, I was working in British Columbia and Canada on this, and I worked in other countries and internationally, and a lot of great things happened. It was a really interesting idea, but, of course there's a but, I was noticing some serious problems I couldn't quite ignore, or some issues or limitations. All right, one thing was that people may not realize, it's a lot easier to get certified if you're a large-scale industrial tree plantation than if you're, say, a family forest woodlot. Now, this was bothersome to some of us because we actually kind of wanted to support the small guy, or at least by buying a certified product, we didn't want to squeeze him out of the marketplace. But actually, there are other reasons why this is important that also people may not always realize. Small producers are really important in many countries in terms of the amount of wood that they produce. So this is true in the US, this is true in Europe, it's true in many countries. Let's take the example of Indonesia. There are hundreds and thousands of small producers of wood in Indonesia. 80% of Indonesia's very substantial timber production goes for domestic use, and much of that is produced by smallholders. It's not all going out in exports and fancy furniture or whatever. These are important. So from every perspective, they matter. And we really need to understand what's the problem. Why are they not getting certified? Well, there are several reasons. I want to focus on a few key ones. One, you might guess. It's expensive. Lack the economy of scale, it's very expensive to get certified. So schemes have done things to try to address this. They have created things like group certification, where if you team up with your neighbor, it's cheaper and you can all get certified together. And this has helped, but it really hasn't made a big enough difference. It still hasn't really changed the balance. So what is the problem? I think and there's another problem that's a little more fundamental maybe, and it's about the logic of how these systems work. The certification scheme involves setting usually an international or a national standard, and then hiring third-party auditors to come and assess compliance with that standard. Note the word compliance. So some organization in New York or Brussels or Jakarta is setting the standards about what forests should look like. They're making sure that everyone uniformly complies with the label, and then they get a label out of it, one label. Now, it's all the same label. This is not really good news for a community forest. It's not necessarily a good news for a big company that's doing something different or going the extra mile, because they all get the same label. So, for example, I had a friend call me, or not call me, actually email me. It's more 21st century, actually. But so they emailed me recently, and this guy has a family woodlot in Oregon, and he was really frustrated because literally this woodlot had been in his family for generations, and they were keeping it in a very natural forest state, very low impact forestry. They're producing high volume, high value wood on slow rotations. And they went through all the expense and the fuss of getting certified, and they were quite proud of it. Then they're driving down the road, and they notice right next door there's a poplar plantation, hybrid poplar, and they've got the same label. And they're saying, well, look, we can't compete with them on price, and now apparently we're not seen as environmentally any different either. Okay, so I'm dumping on standards. I have to make a confession here, and I'm sure you're all aware of this too. Standards are actually really useful too. So like I came back recently from Brazil, and I brought the wrong adapter plug. And my plug fit in some of the outlets, but not in the ones in my hotel. I was not pleased. I couldn't plug in my computer. I couldn't work on my talk. This was a real problem. And at that moment, I was like, I believe in standardization. Let's go for it. just give me my power, please. But I can say, with a lot of confidence, after many, many years working in forestry, that adapter plugs and forests are really pretty different. So there's a lot of different types of forests out there. There's a lot of different people in them. And all of it, probably every single one, has a different idea of what's sustainable. So this is a different problem. So you have a different problem. You might not want to always use the same solution. So we need to know, are there alternatives to standards? And the good news, of course, is yes. Good new ideas, right? Yes, of course. And actually, part of that can come from technology. Let me give an example. Mobile phones. You may or may not know, but now you can go up the far corners of the Amazon. You can go to various places in Siberia, to communities that have very little in terms of material things, but they'll have a mobile phone. This is an incredible opportunity. So now the local person can tell their story in real time to a global audience. This is a potential. The other thing is, potentially, if there's demand for this, is tracking. So now imagine if you went to your store and you bought your toilet paper or your garden bench or what have you, and you could actually know what forest it came from. Not just what country, what forest. And, what kind of, so in that case, not only would you know whether it was a plantation or a woodlot, but if you wanted to know more, you could go to the source. All of a sudden, new worlds of information are available to you. So along those lines, I want to talk about a little app we were experimenting with to experiment with this idea, and I'm working on it with somebody in this audience, Caitlin Schindler, and wherever you are, hi, Caitlin. So we were thinking, well, what would this look like if you made an app that would do this sort of thing? So here you are, you have your app. Let's imagine you got a barcode on your product, you scan it, and up comes this really cool cooperative in Guatemala. This is a real cooperative, Caitlin's been there. There's 3 community forests that supply to it. And they also happen to, by the way, be certified, but at the same time, they've done a lot of other things, I'm quite sure. They've probably done all kinds of interesting innovation of their own, and you can find out about all this, what they've learned, what their stories are. We find out they have mahogany that's really high value, and companies like another real company to Hippie's Guitar in Oregon is really interested in this kind of thing. Because they want to develop relationships with their suppliers, they want to know where their wood comes from, and then they want to be able to tell their customers where the wood in their guitar comes from. It makes the whole thing more meaningful so that everybody can feel really good about that guitar. Now, that's great. It's a nice first step, maybe. But we need your help. This isn't enough. You can really help with this in some very easy ways and others that are more challenging. So, easy way. Next time or sometime when you go to the store, find the store clerk, find a store manager, and when you're looking for a product, say, well, maybe ask whether there's a certified version available. Because let's remember, right now, certification is some signal about how that product was produced. But let's take that another step and say, I want to know where this product has come from. I don't want to just know it's from Chile either. I don't want to know what country it is. Whatever country we live in, we know how diverse our country is. I don't want to just know that. I want to know what farm and what forest. And just by asking, they'll probably say, I'm sorry, you're slightly crazy, whatever. But, just asking makes a difference because that signals that people want that information. So that's one thing you can do. If one person does that, they're going to assume a lot of people are interested. Another thing you can do is let us know what you think about the app, or let us know if you'd like to help, because we're looking for help, or design your own app. That's really fine with us. The more the merrier. We just want this to happen. Well, why do we want it to happen? Because we think the time is really ripe right now to be able to connect real people with real trees. Not standardized people with standardized trees only, but let everybody have a voice in this process. Let ideas, new ideas and innovation happen at all scales, not just at a standard setting scale. We want local people to communicate their visions of what is sustainable. We think it's this kind of idea that we need to meet the new challenges of the 21st century. Thank you.